Hello everybody, it's Marta from the Milne Library, and today I'm going to teach you how to get the shortest waiting list for eBooks and eAudiobooks, and in some cases, no waiting list at all. So we're going to talk about Libby and Overdrive, which are two different ways you can access the CW Mars catalog. We're also going to talk about Hoopla, which is a platform that's available with a Boston Public Library e-card. And lastly, we'll talk about books in the public domain. So first we're going to get started. This is libbyapp.com. It's just the browser-based version of your Libby app. If you ever want to access the Libby app, say on your computer or another device through a website, you can just go to libbyapp.com and you can sync up your account there. So today we're going to search for a particular title. We're going to search for Parable of the Sower. And as you can see, it's already coming up in my recent searches. So right now we're searching within the CW Mars digital catalog, and we can see when we search that it tells us that we can place a hold. Now that means that there's a waiting list. If we go up to this calendar icon in the right-hand corner, it will tell us how long the wait should be. It's approximate, it's not specific because there's no way to know. Right now it's telling us that the wait is going to be about 25 weeks, which is almost half a year. That's a really long time. We don't want to wait that long to get a book. The reason why is because there's only 4 copies available, and there's 55 people who want to read those 4 copies. So that's why it's going to take a long time before we can get that title. Now, in a scenario like this, what you can do is you can use the Partner Libraries feature. Now, I created a tutorial about partner libraries. You can watch that if you need to learn how to add partner library accounts. Once you add them, you'll find them in the upper right-hand corner, right on this Libby icon. It's showing me the different libraries that I have digital cards at. CW Mars is one of 8 that you can do in the state of Massachusetts. So we have 7 other networks that we can search now to see if we can access Parable of the Sower through them. You can access these with your CW Mars library card. You don't need to get a different card, but you will need to just add each library down here on the right-hand side. So oftentimes I search the Boston Public Library after CW Mars because they have a really large collection. So right now we're searching Parable of the Sower in the Boston Public Library. As we see, there's still a wait list that's asking us to place a hold, but if we go to the calendar, it's telling us that the wait is about 2 weeks as compared to 25. That is because they have a lot more copies than CW Mars does. They have 26 copies and only 19 people waiting. So in this case, I would say place a hold in the Boston Public Library network. One thing to know is that because we are guests in their network, anyone who is a card-carrying member of the BPL network will be able to jump ahead of you in line. So it kind of reserves spaces for those network card holders. But even so, even if somebody jumps ahead of you in line in the Boston Public Library network, you're probably going to get it a lot faster than that 25-week waiting list. Another thing that you can do if you're not content with 2 weeks is that you can keep searching within the 8 networks. Before we started this tutorial, I searched all 8 networks for Parable of the Sower, and it turns out that the Sales Network has it available right now with no waiting list. So it's really interesting how in some parts of the state there's a huge waiting list for a digital title, and in another area there's no waiting list at all. It's giving us the option to just borrow this immediately as is. So that is something that you can totally do. You can borrow from whichever network works for you. One thing to know is that you can place holds in multiple networks at once. So say one network says there's a 2-week waiting list and another network says there's a 3-week waiting list. You can place holds on the same title in both of those networks, and then whichever one you get first, just cancel your other hold so that it's available for the next person. So that's how you can kind of use the different partner libraries to your advantage. You can also use this feature in Overdrive if you prefer to use the Overdrive network or the Overdrive app. You can find partner libraries up at the top here. Right now we're in the sales network in Overdrive, and as you can see, it's giving us the option to borrow. One thing to be aware of is that when you're using another network, the default checkout period might be shorter or different than you're accustomed to. So right now, the sales network is giving us the option to borrow this title for 7 days. If you choose the drop-down menu, you can choose 14 or 21. So that's something to be aware of. Even if you have set your account settings in CW Mars, you can go to My Account and Settings. Even if you've set them to default to 21 in CW Mars, you're going to have to change that default in each network that you use. So right now we're in the sales network. We can just go and change our default to 21 days, and it's saving that. Now in Libby, you have to do it on a title by title basis. So when you're checking out, you can press on the number of days and it will show you the other length options. But if you change your settings in Overdrive, that will transfer to your Libby account. So whenever I add a network to my collection, I'll just go ahead and just change the settings to a default right away, so that I don't have to remember to do it each time I check out a book. I want to show you one more thing about Overdrive. If you're looking at a title in Overdrive, they don't have that calendar icon, but they do have this little question mark icon. So right now we're looking at Parable of the Sower, and it's telling us that there's 0 of 4 copies available. It's telling us that the wait time is likely 6 months, and if you click on that question mark, that's where you can kind of get that data about 4 copies and 55 people waiting per book. So you can figure that out in Overdrive or Libby, whichever one is more convenient for you. Now, one thing that I always do if I'm searching for a title is that I look at Hoopla first. Hoopla is a service that you can get with a Boston Public Library e-card. They have eBooks. They do not have eAudio. But we have a whole tutorial about how to use Hoopla and how to get a Boston Public Library e-card. You can have one if you live in Massachusetts or if you work in Massachusetts. The great thing about Hoopla is that everything is on demand. So if you find a title in Hoopla, there's never going to be a waiting list for it. And it just so happens that they have Parable of the Sower. So we don't even have to worry about a waiting list in Libby or Overdrive if you have the Hoopla app, or you can just use it in a browser. You can just access it immediately and read it in your browser. So that is an option. It's especially great if you have a book club. You can all read the same title at the same time. It's a multi-use model. So I can read it at the same time as 20 of my good friends, and we can all talk about it. That is on the Hoopla website through the Boston Public Library. The last thing I want to bring to your attention is that a ton of classic titles are in the public domain, and that means that their copyright has expired. You can access these in a lot of different places on the internet. One of the popular sites is Project Gutenberg. As we can see, here's a list of the top ebooks that were read on Project Gutenberg yesterday. You can either read them in a browser or download them. Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen, #1. A lot of times in the Overdrive catalog, the classic titles are available with no waitlist as well. So CW Mars has a lot of those titles for you. Pride and Prejudice you can get in CW Mars with no waitlist. They have a lot of Duke classics. So if you're just looking to sink your teeth into a great book and you don't care what particular title, I might search some of the classics in Overdrive or online, and you can find some titles without waitlists that way. A lot of the classics are on Hoopla as well. So those are some of the ways that you can find titles with shorter waitlists or with no waitlists at all. If you have any questions, you can look at our tutorials on Hoopla or borrowing with partner libraries, or give us a call at the Milne Public Library. Hope you have fun reading and take care. Bye.